Serious therapists. What is something people are afraid to tell you because they think it's weird, but that you've actually heard a lot of times before? Two topics come up with regularity. When someone discloses to me that they were sexually abused as a kid, or when some is experiencing suicidal ideation. Both are something I hear from clients every single day. And so I don't find it weird at all. But when I have someone in front of me who's talking about it for the first time, I know it's important to validate the fact that even though I might be talking about this for like the 5th time that day, they have never talked about this ever, and are in need of gentle care to feel safe. That they do not know what they enjoy doing. Often they have people in their life, including therapists, say try to do something fun today, or ask what do you like to do when you have free time. Many people I work with do not know what those are. Once I explain that I dislike these statements/questions because they assume people should know the answer, and that many people don't, I can watch as they relax, take a deep breath, and say something to the effect of, "Oh my, that's so good to hear. I have no idea what I like to do." That's part of the problem. More often than not they feel like they should know and that everyone else their age has it figured out. They are embarrassed to say that they don't know when in fact not knowing is very common. I couldn't even try to count how many clients I've had this conversation with. I'd say a common one is believing that there's something innately, irreparably wrong with them that makes them unable to ever truly fit in. For a lot of people it's such a deeply ingrained belief that it can be extremely painful to acknowledge or express, regardless of the level of personal success in their lives. The worst is knowing beyond doubt that you are holding a false belief about yourself and yet not being able to change it. I've spent long enough in therapy trying to figure out what's wrong with me to know there's no there. But the ingrained pattern of thinking doesn't go away. Psychologist here. Basically, anything having to do with sex. There's so much shame. Sexual abuse. Sexual fantasies and fetishes. Erectile dysfunction. Infidelity. Becoming sexually assertive. I've been told that I have a good psychologist's face. I try not to have a strong reaction to normalize the discussion. With adolescents, they are extremely anxious to tell me if they've relapsed or aren't doing well. They cut one night or they were suicidal. They're having a lot of negative self-talk or panic attacks. They'll come in, pretending everything is okay. It's usually in the last 10 to 15 minutes that they'll say something. They'll reveal that they worried they'd let me down, that I'd be disappointed in them. It usually turns into a discussion about policing other people's feelings and tolerating emotions. I explain that I care about their well-being and it's my job to monitor my emotions and reactions, not their role. The amount of people I see who feel like they should be grieving a certain way and are afraid that they must not have loved someone, or must not have cared. People grieve in all sorts of ways. The 5 stages of grief are bull's peep. I was consulting with another clinician who was seeing a couple whose daughter had died. The wife was convinced that the husband must not have cared about her because he wasn't grieving out loud. In reality, while she had been going to support groups and outwardly expressing, he had been continuing to work in a garden that him and his daughter had kept when she was alive, using that time to process and grieve as he did. Both were perfectly fine ways of grieving. However, it is expected that one's grief is more than the other. They both ended up working it out, however. He driving her and others to their weekly support group. Her attempting to work in the garden with him on the condition that they didn't talk. Really sweet. To that same extent, the amount of people who are unaware of their own emotions and emotional process is astounding. So many people feel only angry or happy and worry something must be wrong with them otherwise. Normalizing feeling the whole gamut is just as important. Recognizing what we're feeling as well as what it feels like in our body when we're feeling is incredibly helpful for understanding how we process and feel. As a whole, how we treat emotions as a society is kind of peeped. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Undefined. Unwanted intrusive thoughts are normal and do not mean you are a bad person. Yes. Even intrusions of sexual/religious/moral themes. By definition, these are thoughts that are unwanted, bc they go against your own values and highlight what you don't want to do, e.g. a religious person having unwanted blasphemous images pop into their mind. Or a new parent having unwanted sexual thoughts about their new baby. However normal these thoughts are, over 90% of the population. The moral nature of these thoughts mean that often people experience a lot of shame and take many years before they first tell someone about them. Edit. Because this is getting more visibility that I realized. The occurrence of these thoughts/images/urges are normal. The best way to manage them is to accept that they are a normal, albeit unpleasant, brain process. And a sign of the opposite of who you are and are therefore v. Unlikely to ever do. Let the thought run its course in the background while you bring your attention back to insert something you can see/feel/hear/taste/touch. I usually say something like, okay mind. Thanks for that mind. I'm going to get back to washing the dishes, and the sound/sensation of the water while you ponder all the nasties. Carry on. I literally say it to myself with a slightly amused tone, bc I am always genuinely amused at all the wild stuff my brain can produce. A common one in the time I was a therapist was simply, I don't know. You'd be surprised how reluctant people are to admit that they don't know why they're feeling how they are. But that's exactly why you're or were. I'm not a therapist anymore sat there with me. So we can figure out why together. It always put me in mind of a line from America by Simon and Garfunkel. Kathy. I'm lost, I said. Though I knew she was sleeping. I'm empty and aching and I don't know why. That they don't like their family members. Are angry/want to stop communication with their parents, etc. I work in a country which is more culturally collectivist. So not wanting anything to do with your parents makes you an asshole in the current cultural sense. We deal with this almost on a daily basis. There is deep and profound shame in this, and when we find that line of it might be that your parents are toxic to your mental well-being/trigger your trauma. Many of my clients actually get visibly angry with me. Cultural psychology is so important. Cause when I first moved here I had my American/European hat on. Oh boy. Did I need to adjust. Undefined. This. When I was in therapy. It took lots of time to admit that adults who were raising me could do something wrong or be toxic to me. And even after I was able to admit it, I tend to add something like, but they had good intentions when discussing it. Like if I'm ashamed to talk bad about family members. I'm from Russia. So maybe it's a cultural thing too. Clients become quite fearful of admitting that they weren't successful since the last time they had a session. This could include not succeeding in using a coping skill that they're learning about. Or not being able to complete a homework assignment I gave them. Humans aren't robots. And therapy is a lot of work. That being said, I don't expect people to be perfect as they start to work on themselves in a positive way. It takes time to really commit to change. Especially in relation to trauma or conflicted views that an individual holds. I feel as if the client doesn't want to let me down as their therapist. But these failure events are just as important to talk about as successful moments. I had to learn this lesson as a client. I suffer with ADHD and struggled immensely with starting and completing my graduate work when I was getting my master's. To the point of sometimes making no progress and not completing any work and putting my student status in jeopardy. My therapist had an idea for me to text him at the end of each day to let him know what I had gotten done. as a way of holding myself accountable to someone else. However, I struggled to even do that, and after 2 days, stopped texting him because I still wasn't completing any work and was too embarrassed to tell him. When I came in for my session the following week, I very clearly looked embarrassed and couldn't properly look him in the eye. He said, "Dude, you're coming in here looking like you just killed someone or something. It's okay. You're going to make progress, and it's okay if you're not successful at first. It's all a part of learning to improve. You don't need to be scared or embarrassed if you don't succeed the first time. If you don't complete any work, just tell me. I'm not going to be mad at you. I'm here to encourage you and help you manage yourself better." It really helped to hear that, because I put so much pressure on myself even though my ability to do things normally is compromised. I still see the same therapist. He's great and has helped me improve a lot since then.